Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I've been quite busy for the last week. Just got back from Fort Worth, Texas. I was down there at the PRT Dogman Conference, the second one, which is fantastic, just a fantastic event. I rode down there with my brothers Martin Groves and Daryl Denton, and I tell you, as much fun as the conference was, spending 30 hours in the vehicle with those two great men was priceless. The stories they told, just unbelievable. I need to say thank you to a couple of people before we get started with today's video. First, Martin Groves, who knows that I love Bowie knives. He gifted me this knife. You guys can see that. Now it's not a regular Bowie knife. This is a limited 49. I'm sorry, limited 45 edition. Now this is way too valuable for me to carry with me on my excursions, so just wanted to show you guys this. I'll be bringing my old Bowie knife Lightning like I've been doing for 30 years. And put this up. It's a collector's item. It's in mint condition and truly a treasure to me. So thanks, Martin. I really appreciate it, brother. Thanks for taking me down to Texas with you and Daryl. Had a great time, made some great memories. I didn't just devote a couple of hours speaking to the fans down there. I devoted all my time. So every night there was 3 nights there was an after party, and I invited a lot of people. I made a lot of new friends, a lot of new connections that'll last a lifetime, I'm sure. So I also want to shout out to my buddies who do podcasts on YouTube. Josh Turner, of course, Paranormal Roundtable. Joe and Jesse Doyle from Hellbent Holler. Blondes and Booze. Krista Tweedy and Brandy Butcher. Elijah and Gabrielle Henderson over at Cryptid Studies Institute. These are the people that I try to keep up with as much as possible. So we were down there sitting at our table, Letitia and I, and we were approached by hundreds of people, shook hundreds of hands, sold a lot of books, but met a lot of people. One of the people that I met was really, really special. He told me a story. He was standing there at my table telling me this story, and he almost teared up when he was telling me this. It was a very, very disturbing story. And saw him outside a little bit later, and we were talking, and I asked this fellow, his name was Charles Hamill, I call him Charlie. He's one hell of a good guy. So glad to have met him. So we were outside, and he was telling me about his story, and I was asking him some questions, and I asked him some questions that he'd never been asked before, and he told me that his story had been featured on a bunch of YouTube channels. He named 5 or 6 of them off, and I'm not going to name them. Steve Isdall also read his message on his channel through email, but the other people, I think, interviewed him face to face, and I asked him some questions that no one ever asked him before in connection to his Bigfoot experience, and he was very taken aback by the questions that I asked him, which were very simple. In your life, have you ever seen UFOs or anything like that, or lived in haunted houses? And he looked at me and said, no, no one's ever asked me those questions before, but now that you ask, I'll tell you. Yes, I have. And he started telling me about his UFO sighting when he was younger and the haunted house they lived in. And I asked him if any of these other interviewers had ever asked him these same or similar questions. He said, no, you're the only one that's asked me this. Everyone else just took my Bigfoot encounter, my Bigfoot story, and they were done. So, kind of disappointing to me, because most often the Bigfoot stories that these people have are just the first layer of many layers. And I told Charlie, I said, well, I don't want just the first chapter. I want the whole story. I want everything. If you don't mind, I'd appreciate if you wrote these up and sent them to me to read on my channel. And the very next day, he showed back up at the conference. Now I said, hi Charlie, how you doing? He said, well, I got something for you. And he handed me this blue notebook. And he had spent the night writing up his encounters, writing up his entire story. So not just the first chapter. And he gave them to me. He said, here you go, Bart. I want you to read these on your channel. Said I'd be happy to. So we're going to start off reading what he read, every word, so you guys can get the full story of Charlie's experiences in his life. And it's a story that you can't get anywhere else but here. So let me begin. Thanks, Charlie, so much for this, buddy. Hello, Barton. My name is Charles Hamill. I'm 70 years old, and I have nothing to hide or be ashamed of. And I'm too damn old to be worried about what non-believers might have on their petty little minds. Amen to that. Anyway, here's a little bit about myself before I get started. I am of Native American heritage, precisely Cherokee and Choctaw, German, with a small amount of Irish, Scottish, and Bohemian thrown into the mix. I excelled in the Boy Scouts of America, football, baseball, and track. I worked as an oil field service operator in the Texas oil field for 30 years, and then went to work for the United States Postal Service, and retired in 2018 after 20 years of service. The accounts that I'm relating to you are all the God's honest truth, and I believe you, Charlie. You know, it's something when people send you an email and you have to call them and make sure they're not pulling your leg or trying to just get their story on YouTube, and they're like, ha ha ha, look at here, I made this story up, and this guy read it on his channel. It's totally fake. It's one thing to vet stories like that over the phone, but it's very different when you can look someone in their eyes and see that they're telling the truth. You judge a man's character much easier that way. And I'm telling you right now, Charlie is one heck of a guy. Okay, in chronological order, he says, the day Jesus visited me, a very close encounter with a UFO, and my encounter with a 12-foot tall Bigfoot, and I lived in a house with a poltergeist, but only for a little while. Growing up as a child and living with parents that were both alcoholics was so very challenging and detrimental for me and my sister Pam. Pam is 2 years younger than me. We endured screaming, cussing, throwing of objects at each other, and even gunshots from my mother towards my father on several occasions. Sometimes these shots were from inside the house. Just 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Let's start again. Growing up as a child and living with parents that were both alcoholics was so very challenging and detrimental for me and my sister Pam. Pam is 2 years younger than me. We endured screaming, cussing, throwing of objects at each other, and even gunshots from my mother towards my father on several occasions. Sometimes these shots were from inside the house. One time that I can recall was when I just turned 14 and my own 12-gauge shotgun I had for hunting quail and dove. Well, I always kept my gun unloaded and the safety on, or at least so I thought. Anyway, my parents were having another screaming and yelling match when my mom came into my bedroom. She opened the closet door, grabbed my shotgun, and was pointing it at my dad to pull the trigger. Thank God I had the safety on. And at that very moment, my dad grabbed the gun out of my mom's hands and slammed the barrel down on the floor. When the barrel hit the floor, the gun discharged, sending 12-gauge pellets down the hallway and hitting the washer and dryer. My dad hit the barrel so hard that it bent the barrel of the shotgun. I was right there in bed. My dad looked at me and said, "Son, you almost got me killed." My God, my sister and I were crying and traumatized. I got on my knees by the bed and started praying for me, my sister, and for Mom and Dad. Just 1 second. Let me make sure I don't have any more interruptions. I hate to be interrupted. Okay. I got on my knees and started praying for me and my sister and for my mom and dad. I sat back on the edge of the bed and I was looking up as to heaven. Just then, as a hologram, there was a silver lining of the clouds with a double door made of gold, and there was a staircase of gold that descended to the bedroom floor. At that very moment, the double doors opened up and Jesus stepped out and said to me, "Alan, please do not worry, for I am with you and everything will be all right." I then had a wonderful night's sleep. Now, 6 months later, still in 1967, while on the old football practice field by the two-story basketball gymnasium, I remember my bug spray this time, so hopefully they won't eat me alive before I can get out of these woods. Me and my best two friends, Jim and Ricky, we were all 14 years old and had been throwing and kicking a football for about an hour. This was about 6:30 p.m. We sat down at the middle of the football field on the 40-yard line. We were just talking when all of a sudden from the south we heard a very loud rumbling sound for about 20 seconds, and then it just stopped. Then from right over the treetops there was a triangular shaped UFO moving very slow at about 30 feet high. It stopped right above us. The outside looked to be of highly polished bronze metal. The UFO was approximately 200 feet long, 175 feet wide, and about 20 feet tall. At each corner underneath, there was a ring of neon green light and yellow neon light, 15 feet in diameter, in the center. Then at the very center of the craft's bottom, there was at least every color in the rainbow. 40 feet in diameter rings of neon lights that staged down to a 15 feet in diameter yellow neon light. There were what looked like pipes of different shapes and sizes running to and fro on the bottom of the craft. It hovered directly above us for about 5 minutes. We never heard any sounds at all from the craft. It was completely silent. Then it started moving north very slowly, and when it got about 30 feet from the end over the gym, it just, with a blink of an eye, was gone with no sound. Now, I talked to Charlie on the phone a couple of nights ago, and I asked him about this. I asked him if it just disappeared or it streaked away very, very fast, and he said It streaked away very, very fast, completely silently. Well, we ran to Jim's house, which is about 85 yards away, and when we entered the front door, Jim's mom was watching TV, and a bulletin came on from Channel 7 News that Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls had just reported an unidentified flying object on radar that had just flown over the base at an ungodly rate of speed. That base is approximately 50 miles from our hometown of Archer City, Texas. I surmised that the craft flew over Shepherd Air Force Base at approximately 26,000 miles per hour. That was the last anyone ever heard about the incident. No investigation was ever started, and no more on the news, and no one questioned the Archer City about the incident. No one was questioned in Archer City about the incident. Anyway, we never told anyone but Jim's mom. We thought, who would believe 3 teenagers with a story like that? But it damn well happened. So yes, now you've told me, and I do believe you. Terror at Mountain Fork River, and so it begins. This is his Bigfoot experience. The day that I found out that there was a club of no return, I take that he's referring to Steve Isdall's club, which is growing daily, and so's mine. I'm so glad that people are finally starting to feel comfortable and safe to come out with these stories that usually they haven't told anyone in decades, if at all. Today I found out that there was a club of no return and that there were giant creatures in the forest known as Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Now, I asked him about his life prior to this, and he never heard of Bigfoot or Sasquatch. He didn't know they existed, like most people, and like most people don't even believe they exist right now, but you're wrong. All you skeptics and cynics out there, I'm telling you right now, I don't lie, and you're all wrong. I've seen these things myself, I've experienced it myself, and if you have enough sense to believe an honest man, then you'll believe me. So, my encounter happened in 1974 when I was 21 years old. For 47 years, I never told anyone about my encounter, and I'm still dealing with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is actually very common when you encounter one of these inhumanoids. This is my encounter. I needed a little downtime away from my oil field job, so I planned a vacation to Beaver's Bend State Park in southeast Oklahoma during the first week of March in 1974. My wife, who was 6 months pregnant, and I planned to tent camp on the Mountain Fork River below the dam on Broken Bow Lake for 4 days. So I rented the furthest south tent site, which was about 40 yards from a cement dam on the river. This made the upper portion deeper for better swimming, kayaking, and fishing. We had just beautiful weather with lows in the mid to low 50s and highs of 65 to 70 degrees. That is beautiful weather. Now, the folks down in Texas would call that winter. We were at the conference and it was 90 degrees and I was just burning up, sweating. I was about ready to strip off down to my skivvies and flip-flops, and everyone else was putting on sweaters and jackets and hoodies. And it was kind of funny to me. Anyway, the first 2 days were simply terrific. We had fresh fish for breakfast and supper both days. On the morning of the third day, I got up as usual at 5 a.m. and made a pot of coffee. I had 2 cups and then grabbed my tackle box, rod and reel, and a 5-gallon bucket to put my fish in. I then walked down to the cement dam where I had fished the previous 2 days. This morning there was about an 8-mile-per-hour breeze blowing in my face from the southeast. The sun was just starting to rise when I made my first cast using an inline single spinner, 1-ounce lure called a shyster. Used those myself. White with black dots and a white horsehair skirt over a barbless treble hook. After fishing for about 25 minutes, remind me someday and I'll tell you guys a story about when I actually got a treble hook stuck in my face. But anyway, back to the story. After fishing for about 25 minutes, I had a 3-pound smallmouth bass and 2 rainbow trout, about 2 pounds each. I had planned on catching one more fish and then calling it quits. As I made my next cast, the lure hung up behind me on what I expected to be a tree limb. So I turned, looking up to see where my lure had caught the limb. But all I could see was a wall of cinnamon brown hair. Its hair was about 3 to 4 feet long, except for the bottom of the arms, and that was about, its hair was about 3 to 4 inches long, except for the bottom of the arms, and that was about 6 inches long. The top of my head was about 5 inches below its belly button, and I was 6 feet tall. The creature was standing about 5 feet from me. As I looked up and to my right, I could see that my lure had hung in the upper left chest of something that I didn't know existed. So I asked Charlie for further details on that, and at that moment, if he could tell us whether this thing was a male or female Bigfoot, and he said it was definitely a male. So we did see the reproductive organs on this creature. He continues, it was at least 12 to 13 feet tall, 6 feet wide across the shoulders, and somewhere between 1,200 to 1,300 pounds, I would say. Its biceps were larger than my 34-inch waist. As my eyes moved up to its head, I could see that it had a conical shaped head, a very thick brow ridge with a hooded nose. The eyes were as big as a Coke can and red. It was looking down at me and snarling. Its teeth were blocked and larger than the horse's teeth, and had only slightly pronounced eye teeth. The teeth were ever so slightly stained yellow. The upper lip was thin, but the lower lip was more full. His head looked to be larger than a 5-gallon bucket with no neck. His facial skin looked very dark, leathery brown, with a weathered and slightly wrinkled look. I could not move, but I could hear and feel a very low growl that seemed to rattle my bones, with a pressure all over my body that I can't explain. I could feel each breath that he exhaled. He later told me that it was like standing in a vacuum chamber, looking up at this thing. That's how he felt. That's how his body felt. At this moment, I truly believed that my life was over and that I was going to die. I couldn't speak or scream, but I remember thinking, oh my God, I am so sorry for hurting you. Then, like turning off a light switch, everything went black. I passed out. I believe that was about 6:40 a.m. When I woke up, my watch read 7 a.m. I felt like I had been drained of all my energy, and I had a terrible headache. I sat up, shaking uncontrollably, looking around, and I saw that my tackle box had been flattened. My rod was broken into 4 pieces, and the 3 fish that I had caught were taken out of the 5-gallon bucket. Excuse me. I'm sorry if I sound a little strange today. I had, had spoken so much to the people in the after parties that I lost my voice for 2 days after coming home from the conference, so I might sound a little strange to you, and I apologize for that. After regaining some of my composure, I saw 2 footprints where that damn thing had been standing. I had a measuring tape with me, and so I measured both prints. They were 22.5 inches long, 10 inches across the ball of the foot, and 7 inches across the heel. Well, I had never seen a footprint so huge. I was still shaking uncontrollably, and I had to just get the hell away from there. So I picked up all of my crushed and broken fishing equipment and carried it to a trash bin where I disposed of it. I walked back to camp, poured myself another cup of coffee, sat and waited for my wife to get up. After she exited the tent, I poured her a cup of coffee, and she asked how the fishing was that morning. I explained to her that during the night, someone had came into camp and had stolen all of my fishing gear. Man, was she pissed, but that was a lot better than me trying to explain to her what I had actually seen and what had transpired down at the river, which he knew would scare her to death. At this point, I was feeling so very lucky to still be breathing and alive. had one more cup of coffee and then told my wife that I wasn't feeling quite up to par and that I was just ready to go home. You know, I can't help but believe that the damn creature had been watching me catfish and just wanted my damn fish. No, that's not what I wanted, Charlie. Trust me, they can catch fish themselves. To this day, I still can't believe how that SOB snuck up behind me so quietly. It was as if he just stepped out of thin air right behind me, because there were no other prints than those two right behind me. I know, crazy, right? No, it's not crazy at all. Can't tell you how many times I've heard that. People following a line of footprints that just stop in the middle of nowhere, or only finding one print or two and no more. So you try to explain that using a scientific line of reasoning, and I'll listen. Since that day, I don't frequent forested areas, and only within the last couple of years have I had an interest in finding out more about what it was that took my love of the outdoors. That's very, very sad to me. So I know when you see these things, it's very frightening, life-changing, and you can't unsee them. But I just hate when I hear that someone let these damn creatures take away their love of the outdoors and nature. Breaks my heart, because that's something that nothing will ever take away from me, no matter how many times I see or experience these things. I will be out in my woods and in my creeks until I die. Or that I can't walk. I can't walk anymore. But back then I didn't know about PTSD, but I'm pretty sure that's what I was experiencing. Then came the night terrors, at least once and sometimes twice a night. My screaming, kicking, and punching would wake everyone and everything in the house. That creature would be creeping up on me from behind in my dreams while in a spider crawl position, and just then I would turn to see him. At that point he would just bounce to his feet, grab me up by the shoulders, pick me up to where we were looking eye to eye. He was snarling and then started to open that huge mouth. At this point I would awaken and be covered in sweat and hyperventilating. I had these night terrors every night or every other night for about a year. After that, they became more sporadic for the next 46 years. Now it seems to only happen about once a month, thank God. The end, maybe. These are pics that a well-renowned artist, Sibylla Irwin, rendered from my description of the creature in my encounter. I'm going to show you these right now. Sibylla is a wonderful friend of mine, and if you can, please go check out her channel, Sketching Encounters. She's just a wonderful, wonderful lady. Okay, my friends, apologies for that. Had a few technical difficulties right in a row and had to go back home, which is not very far. I'm not very far from people, so you might hear all kinds of noises. And I'm back now, so I believe I was getting ready to show you Miss Sibylla Irwin's sketches that she did for Charlie. See that one? And here's a close-up. Hope you can see those all right. As you can see, she's a wonderful artist and just a super nice lady and a dear friend to me, so please go check out her channel. She does great work. So, dog must be barking at a Sasquatch. Back to Charles's story. See if I can get this one done before my camera goes dead again. He calls this one Living with a Poltergeist. In 1975, my wife and I, with our 6-month-old son, moved into a rental home. The home was half a block from the high school. At the time of renting, I wasn't aware that an elderly couple who had lived in the home also died there before we signed a rental agreement. So we moved in and everything was great for about 2 weeks. On Sunday, starting the 3rd week, I awoke and our Siamese cat was laying in the bassinet with my son. Well, it startled me so much that I grabbed the cat up and threw it about 25 feet, and he hit the wall in the living room. Later, I felt so terrible for throwing my cat into the wall. Well, I went to work, and when I got home, my wife asked me to take the trash out. So I opened the back door and stepped down to the trash bin. Then I noticed that a raven was dive bombing at my German Shepherd dog in the backyard. So I took my pellet gun and killed the raven. The next day I went to work, and when I got home, my wife asked me if we had a busted sewage pipe under the house. I looked and couldn't find anything, but the stench was terrible. It smelled like sewage and something like rotting meat. So I called a plumber to come check out the problem. He came out and checked all around and under the house, but couldn't find a problem, but he could sure smell the stench. I then walked back into the house and went to the restroom. The restroom was full of Comet powder in the air, and the can of Comet was laying on the floor. It almost choked me. The dust was so thick. I called to my wife to come look, and when I turned back around, all the Comet dust was gone, and the can of Comet was sitting on the bathtub, right where she had later told me she left it. I told her to just forget about it as I walked into the kitchen, and by the 2nd bedroom door, it opened by itself, and I felt a very cold chill, and I could see my breath. It felt like someone had walked right into and through me. At the same time, there were about 500 big white striped flies in a ball in the corner above the washing machine in the kitchen. My wife was standing in front of the washer, and a full bottle of rum that I had on top of the refrigerator flew across the room and hit my wife on the side of her head and her left shoulder, and then fell behind the washer. I got a fly swatter and started killing the flies. They would scatter but come right back, and it took me about 20 minutes to kill all the flies. After killing the flies, I called a buddy, and we started moving us the hell out of that damn place. And while moving, my German Shepherd got ran over and killed right in front of the house. That sucks. Well, we moved, and I never looked back at that hellhole. Thanks for listening to an old man's encounters. Thank you, Charlie, for sending those in, taking the time and trouble to do that. I can sympathize with you because I lived in a couple haunted houses myself, and wasn't any fun. I could probably tell you a few stories about that, partner, next time we talk on the phone. Charlie was able to move out almost immediately, but I was stuck in the house for 5 years, so not very fun. And I remembered the bug spray, but it's not really working so great. So I just want to thank everybody that comes to this channel and watches my videos. Thank you very sincerely. Thank you to everyone who came out to the PRT conference to support Josh Turner and I. It was a great time, and I met some great people. And I want to give a shout out to Trey Felton, who provided the excellent meals and brought me a couple racks of ribs that were so good. And I also want to give a shout out to Jenny and Steve Brown for making the after parties a success and something that people will never ever forget. And she also gifted me some artwork by her 12-year-old daughter Ella. I want to show it to you guys right now. There's the dog man. As you can see, she's really talented. And this one, Silver Bullet, Stephen King. You guys can see that. Thank you so much, Jenny and Steve. You're two wonderful people. And everyone at the after party, or after parties I should say, there were 3, should be grateful to you for what you guys did. So I have a lot of good stuff coming up. You guys stay with me. I have a guy from Michigan who I talked to personally. He's telling me some stuff about his dogman experiences that I don't think you've ever heard before. I've certainly never heard this kind of stuff before. So that'll be coming up soon, and I have a bunch more emails to read. Thank you everyone for sending those in. And when you send one in, you might as well go ahead and include your phone number, because I will be calling you to make sure that you're on the level. So You guys have a great day. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you're having a wonderful day or night, whichever it is that you're watching this, whatever time you're watching this. And I hope to see you again very soon. So just remember to be kind to one another. Show no hatred to anyone, even if you don't agree with them or you don't like them. Pray for everyone, even your enemies. Okay, God bless y'all. Till next time, be safe. Alright guys, I'm back in the big thicket across from my house again today. Walking through here, checking things out. There's a pretty significant bend in that little sapling right there. And the thing that bothers me is, I used to see deer here every day, at least 5 or 6 deer. But now there's nothing here. There's no deer, rabbits, squirrel, possums, nothing. And it's been this way for about a month now. So it's really kind of got me bothered. As a matter of fact, most of the shorts that I put up on my channel of deer were taken right here in this thicket. Of course, we have the mandatory jet plane flying over. Wouldn't be a YouTube video without that. So, anyway, I just thought I'd take you guys through here for a second and show you just how dead it is now. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Got a lot more stuff coming up and it's fantastic. So stay with us. We love you guys and God bless every one of you.